So recording started. So hi everybody, welcome to TST meeting. Today we can now talk about various ONOS deployment related tools. What's happening today is a lot of the deployments are using tools that are aimed at developers and testers, which is creating some problems because, for example, you can't really necessarily change those tools without affecting the existing deployment. So the purpose of the discussion is to figure out what kind of functionality is lacking from our deployment toolbox, and then figure out how we would go about potentially introducing additional tools to that toolbox and how to develop those. So kick off.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really prepare anything in terms of presentation. It needs to be more an interactive discussion. I can tell you for sure what's going on. As Thomas said, people find very convenient to basically have let's call it management machine, which is in your case is the development machine, where they can deploy multiple nodes from. Okay, I hope I said it in a proper English. And also they like to have a set of tools. Some of us consider those tools for development. Some of them use those tools every day. For example, to push the configuration to a set of remote nodes, retrieve configuration, or whatever. I mean, the basic is having a place where you can define yourself, well, or whatever you want to call it, target machines.
Okay.
And from there, you should push the configuration.
So when you say configuration, do you mean literally?
NetCFG. So ONOS dash NetCFG.
So the way you deploy these things is you usually copy that file out to all the nodes?
No. I just really, we
use the
they have the management machine, target machines. They just download the code from the repo. I know it's not suggested. I understood why, and I'm trying to push this, but they create the network CFG.json file, and then they do RPC setup and they push it. So for pushing the file, create the network CFG file and then push it, understood is not the best thing to do. And yeah, I'm promoting the other behavior, so using the REST API on one of the nodes and push the configuration through that, which today means using ONOS dash NetCFG.
And are they also using STC to push the bits to the subsidiary cluster members?
Well, before it was ONOS install, ONOS test, now STC stuff.
Yep.
The only, I don't know what you think, then this is up to you, but the only thing I would see is to don't use a completely different set of tools, maybe to include something less, to don't maintain two different things in parallel. But if you think it's not a good idea.
Well, I mean, so today, the past couple of releases, we've been pushing out not just the ONOS tar TZ, but also
ONOS test.
tar GZ, which is basically a sparse extract of the ONOS source roots tree, which contains the tool set and some of the bin build stuff, enough to run STC by itself, rather than having to clone it. And the idea is to be able to have a frozen in time snapshot so that you can run, in retrospect you can run STC on top of the tar, and a set of test cases and set of tools that are designed to work with that point in time. So that's one possibility. And that way you would have basically a stable, at least you would have stable image with the.
Sorry, I think they say that you should still cloud it.
Oh.
There's always, that one always seems to have some problems.
I mean, I'm not a quiet talker.
So, sorry, I can just say one quick thing, because you mentioned another important thing. Let me clarify. These, even if we call them, well, we define them because sometimes they are production deployments. Sometimes these are development testbed deployments, which means that, especially at the beginning, it happened that not downloading the tar, but downloading the repo was a kind of initial requirement, just because we had to set lots of, change some code, set parameters inside the code, which shouldn't happen in normal life, but it happens in the everyday life when we deploy now. And so, you know, it was about this need and the need to have a central machine to deploy everything, and the development tool were perfect for this, right? Of course, the idea should be, once your code is ready enough and you tested it enough, you generate your targz, I believe, I don't know, and you push that targz or whatever else. But people still modify the code all the time today, right?
I mean, so I guess, would it be then fair to characterize the current deployment scenarios are really not true deployment scenarios? They're more like development scenarios.
Setups, yeah.
In which case, you know, just have it, I guess. But
yeah, I think that mode where you're messing with source code and trying things out, I think that is basically a development workflow.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a separate workflow for that.
No,
but like you said, at some point, once you're finished, at least at some period of time, once you've finished your tinkering, you should have a targz that works in your environment, right? You should be able to build something in your environment, and from then on, you should be able to move to the production workflow using that targz that you've built.
Exactly, right. I think that's dangerous to continue to use the development workflow from that point of view.
Separate them. If you're testing a new feature and you need to go back to the development workflow to make sure you're clear on your mind, right? You have to do targz that works with new features in the environment, right? But yeah, I guess the problem is once you have that targz that works, we don't currently have a toolset that allows you to manage ONOS in production.
Sorry.
Right, and it's exactly right. What is that set of needed tools or constructs?
Sorry, guys, but imagine you just mentioned the workflow, right? You work on your development machine. When you're done, somehow you generate the targz, which you push to a set of target machines. Yeah. Which is basically the same of what we do with I code, I do ONOS package, I do STC setup, and I push it to remote machines when I'm done.
Well,
right?
I mean, if you were to look at the guides, for example, right, there is an installation guide somewhere, I forget where is it, installing ONOS. Right? Yeah. Administrator guide. There is installing and running ONOS.
It says,
tell me what's wrong with this. I mean, we basically just say this is development environment setup.
Wait, but hold on. We have to do the download crap.
No, but wait.
No, exactly.
I don't suggest. It's fine, but I don't suggest
building and packaging.
now.
Really, this is wrong, right? This needs to get fixed.
Yes.
Because what really should be happening is you either, in order to install ONOS, you need to have the targz. Now you either download the targz or you build the targz. Either way, from the point of the time that you have the targz to install it, there should be a set of tools that should be oriented towards deployment that should be sufficient to be able to manage it, you know, as a runtime installation.
Well, yeah, but like if you provided like, you know, Debian packages, and we could just replace most of this with a, you know, a wget and a D package install, right? Or maybe add a PPA and then an apt install. Right? Sure. That would be great, but we don't have that.
No, correct. Sure, we don't have that, but it goes beyond that. Even let's say even if we had those, then the question will come of what do I do to manage it as a cluster?
By the way,
right? And so the thing is, there's a balancing.
Oh, yeah, well,
there's a balance.
That installation. I mean, there's installation, configuration, and operation.
Correct.
Manually.
Sure.
And so I'm saying that if we had a simple binary installation
other thing that's difficult there is that you have people that still want to build their own versions of ONOS and put them into production, and those are not going to be registered to a PPA.
Yeah, well,
or they're not going to have.
Yeah, but I think that's, I agree with what, I don't know if it was Thomas or John just said about, that's really a developer scenario when you're modifying the kernels. Like people are modifying their own Linux kernel. Like, okay, fine. Those aren't, those people are developers, and they're sort of, extreme. Sure, yeah, there may be people at Google will build their own. They can basically, we don't have to invent their workflow for them. They can invent it themselves. But there is an interesting sort of DevOps kind of workflow where people should use the released version of ONOS and build applications on top.
Okay. So if you just put this on hold, right? So clearly, the installation of ONOS, in terms of installing it on a single node, should be as simple as possible. And yes, ideally, it would be integrated with the native environment, package managers, and whatnot. But let's put that aside, and let's just say that we do have an installation of ONOS, whether it's one simple command or whether it's 3 commands. But we have it. The question is, what else beyond that is there to be able to manage it as a cluster? I think with a cluster comes a special sort of needs that a special set of functionality that's required that sort of goes beyond the single node package managers, and which sort of are highlighted by Luca's initial observation. We need a place from which to orchestrate this.
Yeah.
But this gets us into a balancing act between reinventing the wheel of things like Puppet or Ansible or whatnot, right? Which are consoles for managing multiple machines, potentially large number of those machines. They are well known, well documented, and so we need to make sure we provide, at least in my view, we should provide a reasonable set of tools to do this kind of in a poor man's environment without getting overly invested in it and without requiring other people to necessarily adopt those other tools. But at the same time, we should make sure that what we do integrates really well with those other tools to make sure that if community members or other people want to develop integrations with Ansible or integrations with Puppet, etc., that they can do that.
Okay, but I guess here is the thing, right? Why do you say SDCs for developers and not for deployers? Because in my mind, okay, STC just does a couple of checks, the basic version, the one I use, STC setup, the clean STC setup, does a couple of checks, push the packages, eventually, probably, I guess it creates the RGZ if it needs to, and it verifies that ONOS runs.
RGZ precedes that.
Okay, and verifies that ONOS runs, which, as far as I know, is perfectly what we need, which is already there.
Okay, I mean, in that case, I would say just use it. It's just you should probably use it in the context of.
But then you tell me development.
Well, the thing is, it may change. So if you continue to be, if you attach to evolving repo, stuff may change and stuff may break, and you're not going to have guarantee, and some of the stuff may be not documented.
Yeah, if it's documented, you're also bound in by the cell infrastructure, which again,
well, it's
can change whenever we want.
As long as you define few environment variables and have some in your environment, certain prerequisites, which is the passwordless access and stuff, you're good to go. I mean, you can use it. And so I'm not saying you can't use it. It's just that it comes with a fairly decent sized list of disclaimers. And
sorry, no, I understand, but whatever, either we develop something internally and we reinvent the wheel, and so we have control on it, or if we take an external tool, it could be Ansible, Puppet, whatever, potentially it changes, right? So if we go for an external tool, I'm just saying I don't see any point now to go with another tool just because we have one.
But
already.
okay, so the thing is, what everybody uses, it's clearly up to them. So you're perfectly fine with using this set of tools. What I have a problem with is documenting it as a recommended way of installing ONOS. The minute you reach into the developer bucket, that's when the cookie jar, then I think that hand needs to get slapped. We need to be able to have concise set of instructions that for installing ONOS, which make no reference whatsoever to the ONOS cells, to the constructs, to any of the source tree stuff. everything that for deployment should be provided, in my view, should be provided in ONOS *GZ.
You know, that's
Well,
where.
What about I mean, two things that sort of may not be provided. I mean, one of them is OS distribution packages. Not necessarily ever an RPM.
Yeah, but sure, but they're plus, the *GZ++, right?
And the other thing that's sort of so the installation, you know, as we know, it could be very easy, right? But then the more complicated thing is, which perhaps shouldn't be complicated. Maybe the problem is that the system is too hard to figure. Maybe it's just like automatically figure this stuff out for you. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that different installations may have different configurations that they want, and currently we don't have an easy-to-use tool that installations can use to configure their ONOS cluster, both to form the initial cluster and then to do other things such as selecting which applications are running, for example. Those are sort of the two things.
Is there anything from Cord we can leverage or look at building this so that it could be integrated into Cord as a better cluster deployment tool?
That's an interesting thought. I mean, Cord has its sort of own ball of wax and it's sort of much more complicated, but I don't know, what do you think? I would guess no.
Potentially. I guess in Cord we always install using Docker, so that we already have a self-contained sort of runtime environment. But we don't have what you're talking about, which is the management tool. So often in Cord I find myself downloading the ONOS-netcfg script from my machine into Cord so I can use it, and also the ONOS app script. And all these scripts that we have in the test environment, I often find myself downloading into my Cord tool so I can actually manage ONOS at runtime. Yeah. So these are the things that we kind of
Jonah, you're a bit faint. Sorry, kind of hard to hear.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, in Cord we install with Docker. That's one thing, and then the other thing is that we're still in Cord we're still missing the management tools that we need to manage ONOS at runtime. So I often find myself pulling in management tools from the test environment when I'm working with ONOS inside of Cord. That's my point.
I think it's a really good point, and you sort of put a nice word on it, Donna, which is that we'd like to sort of scope out what the ONOS management tools are, and which are used for operating and maintaining, for installing, operating, maintaining, upgrading, and eventually end-of-lifing, ONOS installations. And we don't really provide anything to do that besides the GUI. And so the question, I think it'd be very wise for us to sort of try to scope that out, like what are the sort of minimal requirements for ONOS management, and sort of describe the problem in a very clear and concise way, and then figure out the best way to solve it.
So, yeah, I guess that's, well, at least in my mind, it was a very important part, but it goes for a second point. The core for me was how to install ONOS, okay? I was changing the wiki in my way, you were changing the wiki in your way, we always argued about this, discuss about this thing. So I wanted that we all agree on what's the best practice to deploy ONOS. For example, you just say, for me, we should never mention in the wiki that the best practice is to use, sure, you can use it, but we shouldn't mention to use STC or that stuff. Me, I'd say, okay, let's not mention it, but it doesn't seem to me an alternative going on each machine to copy and paste it.
Yeah, so
let's find a way.
What is the
There's something
recommended?
missing there, right?
Right.
So, and that's my point, is precisely. I want to make sure I don't just, because there's probably a few things that are missing that we could provide without dragging in the whole development and test process into the deployment. Because the minute we do that, then we fail the simplicity test. This stuff should be simple. I mean, we need to be able to install it on one machine, form a cluster, potentially pre-install network configuration, pre-install some initial set of applications, and then potentially for managing cluster. I mean, Actually, the dynamic clusters configuration one, we leave that on hold for right now because that's a little bit of a separate subject. But I mean, if you start with those few things, I mean, installing ONOS, you know, that we might potentially have a couple of different variants. One would be sort of generic, which is just using the tar-GZ, and there might be some specific ones using RPMs or DEVs, right? Which might make things simpler, sure.
Yes.
But then you still need to form a cluster, you still need to be able to sort of initialize it. What are those things, or what are the tools that that are to your disposal to do these things? I think the minute we say STC as part of official documentation, as we currently have, to me that is a huge problem and we should abstain from it.
So what do you think we should do instead? I guess that's the question. I mean, what I hear Luca saying is that the reason why he's using this is because that's all we have, right? And the question is,
sure,
what's the alternative? Or what would you like to see as the alternative?
Well, I mean, I'm not really the customer here. I'm just simply pointing out some problems, at least as I see it, putting on a customer hat, right, or administrator hat. But I'm not really an administrator. I'm just trying to pretend.
If we don't have any good alternative to what we have, we should probably just keep what we have, right? Because otherwise, we're just telling them to shut down their operations, right? Because we don't provide an alternative, they don't have any options.
So we're trying to figure out what the alternative should be.
That's right.
That's the point, right?
That's right. Because I think it's a huge problem if in our installation guide we are saying Maven clean install. I mean, or even if you said bug, that is not an installation. That is building.
I don't think anybody disagrees with you. Right. But the problem is that there is no viable alternative.
So okay, so we either make it so you have the thing that you're trying to install. Either it is completely self-contained, such as Debian, right, or RPM. Or the tar-GZ. But usually this is the thing that's intended to be placed on the machine that's going to run the software. The thing is, we seem to have a need for some other machine from which you can drive the operation for the entire cluster. So perhaps we do need to have some sort of additional artifact, secondary artifact, tools, and then for managing the cluster from a sort of a third point of view, you know, third-person view. Vantage point.
So can I try to make the point on an idea that I had? So, okay, well, people from online can see. So, in my mind, also in the wiki, what I'd like to see, in my view, are two things: the definition. First of all, don't explain to people in a guide how to deploy on a virtual environment, a Docker environment, Vagrant environment, because otherwise we end up with 1,000 versions.
I completely agree.
Those are tutorials. It's another thing, or workflow, call it as you want. So in my mind, we should have an abstraction, which is the, call it management machine for now, where you have the bit, meaning could be already a tar-GZ in case, and the target machines. So the building block for me is, you could say to a user, either that you have 1, 2, 3,000 target machines where you want to have ONOS installed, you can go directly to them, download the tar-GZ, as they do now,
sure,
and deploy it like that.
Okay.
Okay. Then, using behind the same mechanism, we should have also something to do the same operations here, the same operation that we suggest to the user to do directly on the target machine, automated from a management machine.
Okay, but it doesn't come for free. You realize this, right?
Of course, that's why we are here, right? I mean,
no. I'm not talking about development. I'm talking about from the viewpoint of the administrator. It does not come for free because effectively, what you now you pushed the complexity somewhere else. So rather than them having to run a simple set of commands on and machines of the cluster, we now gonna give them simplicity of running, fewer commands across the entire cluster from a third machine, independent machine. However, in order for them to be able to do this, that increases the sort of prerequisites that they have of things that they have to prepare on those target machines. In the first place,
yes.
Like passwordless login, potentially some sort of
right? These requirements, these requisites should be anyway set up on this machine, right? So if you then install ONOS, I need anyway to create on a single machine today when I download the.
But I don't need to log into a password, Leslie.
But
I can just SSH the machine, type in my password manually, and just run few generic commands and to get the node running. No problem.
Well, but you need still to, of course, create. We just did it with the script of Mobile last time. You need to create the user SDN. You need to give permission to the folder. You need to copy the service over.
no.
To
So.
Oh yes, we did it.
Okay. I mean, one question.
What's your script done?
No. That's the problem. You're reaching into that toolbox, which makes it an assembly.
No, this actually. So yeah. So in order to, you've seen, in fact, you I think reviewed my draft pull request where I wrote a service file for systemd, right? So in order to test that, I wrote a bash script that gets the tar DZ, untars it, but then in order to run a service, it has to do a bunch of things. Like Luca said, it's best practice not to run as root, so we have to create a user for it and a group. We have to, so that requires, OS commands. We have to discern which flavor of Ubuntu is running and install the correct system startup files, and we have to make sure that they're actually running. So it's actually, conceptually it's simple, but practically it's like a dozen commands that need to be run. From the first wget to the last, like ONOS start or whatever, system start ONOS or system control, whatever.
Yeah. So
it's kind of non-trivial, is what I'm saying.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying some of the complexity comes from having followed, not from using ONOS, but from following that platform's conventions. Nothing to do with ONOS. Because to do it, so ONOS, you can just pick a directory, whatever you untar it, and then you do it.
If we had a D package, we could just do D package install. That would work. But
well, in terms of the D package, you're still going to have some pre-install stuff, which is going to hide all the context.
I mean, I guess that's my point, that it has to be done somewhere. But the thing is, to make it practical and easy,
So can I suggest something? I mean, so we still need to have generic set of installation instructions for how to deploy it just on any platform, right? And then we may need to once we have it running on any platform, then you can have a variance for running it on specific platforms where we may have artifacts such as Debian or RPM, right? The way the instructions could be slightly revised and potentially much simpler because a lot of the sort of conventions have been observed inside those packages. So but that's a single node install. We still need to then have a fairly clear set of documentation for what's involved in forming a cluster.
I agree.
Right? Without any tools, just documentation. We need to have that so they can be understood. The tools to make it simpler, potentially from a third-party Vantage machine, would be something that would be nice to have. I definitely agree. But again, we need to balance it about not investing too much there, where it's going to get us into a realm of overlap with Puppet and other stuff.
But that's part of another thing I ran into, which is I'm trying with ONOS.py and also with testing this other testing the systemd scripts. It was really hard for me to test it and to write ONOS.py because there was no documentation on how to configure the system. So I had to just kind of reverse engineer it basically, and I probably got it wrong because there's no documentation. So that was very frustrating.
Sure, and I think this is probably where, maybe accidentally we pick up some of the conventions that we use in the development process, which are really not essential. We just observe, hey, this is what the dev tools like. For example, reliance on ONOS apps, right? That's an entirely test developer construct. Should have nothing to do, but for some reason it found its way into the ONOS service. It shouldn't be there, but it's there. So we need to figure out how to extract it. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm trying to reiterate what you just said, Thomas, which is like trying to build a framework for like doing management target stuff. Like it's going to create a ton of complexity, as I think you said. I mean, in a lot of deployments, people are going to run Docker, or they're going to run Kubernetes, or they're going to run Ansible or Chef or Puppet or something to do the orchestration. And what we need to do is we need to tell people what the steps they need to do for installation.
From IP to IP.
Sorry?
From IP to IP, regardless where those things are installed. That's
No, just installation on a box. Like you get into the box yourself. How do you, given a set of bits and command line, how do you do this? Like that set of instructions is, like Bob said, probably 12 commands, right? 12 things you need to do to install ONOS, not configure ONOS with touching apps or putting configuration files or cluster files or anything. Just how do I install ONOS? Once we have that, a lot of projects have a place in their repository for storing the Docker file, for storing the Puppet or Chef or Ansible commands, or even like a third-party script to do that implementation. So I think we should host the implementations of some of these tools that people are going to use for installation management, but we should also have like the top-level instructions for just how to do that. And then having clear configuration instructions. Again, if someone wants to orchestrate that or automate it using a tool of their choice, they can do that. We can provide a bash script or something, or suite of scripts.
We have it. It's STC. We already do that. We already have the set mechanism.
But the thing is, STC, it's all packed together, right? STC does
completing installation
and
configuration and testing.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I like STC. That's why it was developed, because it's useful. I think. What?
In one command, you deploy everything. You just define a set file of 5 lines and you deploy it. I'm not discussing what's behind. I understand your reason, right? But you need to understand that you can put many installations for users at once, but they will keep using what.
Okay. So to me, clearly, the issue is, I think we need to start with clear instructions. And as we write those instructions, the silliness of writing 12 different steps, which we can clearly see, can be easily reduced maybe to one or maybe 3 or 5 steps. We can, in the process of that, that'll identify the need to build some tools to help with that, right? I mean, that's usually what happens when we do tutorials or when we mentor interns, when we sit side by side with them to show them the things that normally our fingers do kind of without any thinking, and we have to explain it to them. To either students of the tutorial or our interns, then we realize, oh, well, that's kind of silly. Let's simplify this. And out of that explanation is born the need to simplify it. And I think, so if you start with instructions, and from there we can come up with a set of basic tools for installing one node or for installing the entire cluster. You can still use STC. I'm not telling you not to use it. I'm just telling you do not document it as the primary way of installing ONOS.
No,
to me, that is completely wrong.
I understand, Thomas, but here is the gap why we are talking today, right? That you're keeping saying this, and all the people that today deploy do that.
Because you told them to.
No.
Well, no. I mean, to Luca's point, the authoritative documentation on how to install and configure ONOS is embedded into the STC script.
Okay, so what we need to do is extract it and document it.
It doesn't exist, right?
Okay, sure. I guess we're saying the same thing just from 2 different views.
Yeah, well, I think I actually see 2 kind of really important things being said. One is, which I think many of us have touched on, that we don't have correct and concise documentation. I'll just say correct or any group. We don't have correct documentation for installation, configuration, and operation of an ONOS cluster. But let's just stop it at installation and configuration, where to get from a cluster of machines to a state where they're all running ONOS, they're all running a cluster, and they're all running a set of apps. We don't have that documentation.
Correct.
Nobody has written it.
Correct. And
so, and to Brian's point, the only source for that information now is either maybe it's in some people's heads, but for somebody like me, the only way I can figure out is by reverse engineering it, by looking at what scripts like the STC script do, or by trial and error, right? Some combination error, which is really painful.
And also,
not only that, but nobody can write documentation because they can't figure it out, right? Because the information out there is this horrible chicken and egg problem. So that's one thing, is that we've we've definitely let documentation slide, and in particular, because we're missing these 2 critical pieces of information, our deployments are suffering. And then Luca's saying something really important as well, which is that if people have a simple workflow that's just like one command, they're not going to want to change to some other workflow that's less convenient and more painful.
Sure. I mean, I get it. I understand. But there's a danger in that, right? There's a danger, and it's just like with, it's the balancing the number of convenience aliases we have in our development environments, like when we have with MCI and whatnot. After a while, people forget what those things are doing, and then you get into this cargo engineering culture. You don't understand what this thing is doing, and if the thing changes, then you
okay. But
for deployment, that's a problem.
Tell me one thing, Thomas. What's the danger of, you say STC is huge, is big, okay?
It's not huge, it's not big, it's just that there you drag in too much of the developer, builder.
Okay, but what you install differently on the target machine? On the target machine, which at the end are your production machines, right? Because that's what I'm looking at. So assume that you download the TarGZ.
Yes.
So forget about now coding, repository and stuff,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
You download the TarGZ.
Yes.
And you just deploy your code on the target machines, right? On the target machines, at the end goes the same code or not?
No, it's the same code. Clearly, I mean, as I said before, if you have the TarGZ and the test TarGZ, those two go hand in hand. You can unroll the test TarGZ and run STC. As long as you have it self-defined, the same bits will go there as if you had manually copied them, uninstalled them, and everything else. The issue here is if you don't have the steps documented concisely, then we don't have any easy way, like Bob said, is to be able to produce additional or varying forms of installation, like using Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, and all of those things. Those people, everybody has to reverse engineer. So we do need the documentation, period. And the documentation that we currently have on Wiki needs to be completely gutted, in my view, completely gutted in terms of any reference to Maven or build tools should be completely stripped away. If you want,
no, I don't see the reason.
We can easily delete it, but then it'll just be empty because there'll be no
no,
documentation.
we need to provide documentation is what I'm saying.
But my point is, you say that is dangerous. Why? Having STC is dangerous. Why using STC is dangerous? I don't understand that. Just STC setup or install the chef. I want to install. Let's take STC out, okay? ONOS install. I want to SCP one thing and have one script that creates a user on the script of Bob that creates a thing on the machine and install it as a service. Are 3 commands.
So what I'm saying is that generally what we try to do with the test tools, if there is a deployment time tool, which currently there's only few of those, right? Most of our test tools will rely on that tool or will provide a small wrapper around that tool. So for example, like ability to create passwords or create custom keys. We provide those for production, and the test ones simply provide if you have a test one for that, we'll simply provide a remote access to those local deployment time tools.
Okay, so forget STC, okay? For many reasons, I honestly don't care now what it is. But we have a bunch of commands that are really small, concise, that do very specific things. It can be SCP, the packet there, create the user there, copy the service. So I agree with you that the first step, also in our documentation, should be to document what should be done on a target machine.
Yes.
If, when possible, technology, platform, underlying platform agnostic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As much as possible. Okay, so abstractions also there. Once we have that, we should take 2 or 3 tools that possibly we already have that we use since forever.
Sure.
And just automate those 3-4 steps that you should do on the target machine with those.
And that's exactly
the cell file thing. Honestly, I like it, and I don't see that.
I'm glad you like it. Fine, that's okay. I mean, it's just environment variables. That's all it is.
Exactly.
That's fine. That's fine. And then my point is that's exactly the point of the discussion, is to figure out the small subset of tools that you find useful for deployment. If it happens to be STC setup, we can extract STC setup, make it part of the deployment times tools. It's not a problem.
That's what I'm saying. That's what Luca is saying, is that you want something that does what STC setup does, right? For deployments, you don't need all the testing stuff. You don't actually want all of STC. You just want the STC setup part of it.
Yeah, and that's simple. I mean, we're talking about probably like 5 additional jars, including the whole SCC scenario. I'm just saying, instead of just saying, I want this whole thing, the point is to identify what it is that we need, to make it simple, so that we can document what it does. Because it's still important to document what it does, so that we do not lose that canonical form of understanding.
So SCC setup, by the way, the only reason I use it, well, every time I discover there's a new command that comes out, I see everyone in the development using it, honestly, and I just use it. And if it works, it's great, and if it's one command I do, everything is great.
And it's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure that, yeah.
I'm just saying, with ONOS install, you install, but then I guess you needed to start the service or do something else.
Exactly.
SCC setup in one command does just everything together for you, which is nice. So I use it. And people do it as well.
I mean, that's how I use it as a developer. Right, of course. But
yeah, but the system administrator is lazy as well, and that. I mean, they like to do everything in one command as well. Not because they're system administrators that they like to do.
Sure, and I mean, this is less about blaming the system administrator deployer. This is more about identifying what it is that we're lacking from the ONOS documentation and tool set
also
to provide a concise set of collateral, information and collateral to make deployments easy. Because right now I don't think it's easy. Even though STC makes it easy, but it's really hiding an underlying problem. Which is why I think it's dangerous if we don't remedy some of the issues that it's hiding. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so we need to document this thing first.
Okay, I can propose myself to start the share document, the share from blank page, but at least I can start with the command to run on the target machine.
Yes, I think that would be very useful.
Okay. Yes. Google Docs, then when we are ready and it's good enough, we put it on the web.
Much like what we did for the bug, right? We did it as basically sort of just very, very concise text, and then we can plot that in Wiki.
So I guess agreements in general have been being as much as possible, as much as we can, platform agnostic. In the guide, don't put references to what's outside the scope of a generic IT machine. Machine with an IT, sorry.
Yes, but I think when it comes to integration with, let's say, there will probably be a point where we should make an exception, and will be something like with either Ubuntu or basically to run it as a service on a Linux machine. We should provide basically this is what you need to do to register it as an upstart or system daemon. So we should probably provide some either collateral and or documentation to do that.
I have a question for you. The script that Bob wrote was also very convenient because it was doing all those steps in one command once again, right? On the target machine directly.
Yeah.
So how that does a wget basically of the RGZ, set up the environment for you and create the service. I guess distinguishes also between the different type of operating system problems. Well, that's
something like this. I mean, I didn't set out to write a completely robust tool. I just wanted something where that I could. I just wanted to sort of document a procedure and be able to repeat it in easy and automated ways for my own testing purposes. But I also think that it's a really good idea to, if you have a documented process, to be able to test that process in an automated fashion.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So should that come in the way, and how?
I would incorporate what Bob has done, and both in terms of documentation and potentially reference to the tool in the document. And I think we should find a home for it in the.
I kind of think somebody who knows what they're doing should actually figure out what the correct process is.
Well, sure. So let's no. But the point is to take what you have, and then we can see if you can.
But it could be a. I'm certainly happy to provide that as a starting point for anybody who's interested. But it probably has mistakes and unnecessary things and things you want to change. So I think somebody should try to look at that and sanitize it.
So if
you can start that document, Luca, and you can start collaborating on it. Because I think it would be really good to be able to have a nice, clean node installation sort of instructions, and then we can certainly introduce the sort of a management platform concept as a simple thing. And that's fine if you decide to incorporate STC in there. That's okay. I just want it to be that it's subset.
I don't care at all about STC. I want to be clear one more time about it. If you provide me a script, ONOS install that copy the package and create the user, and does what the Bob script does on multiple machines, following the cell environment variable mechanism, is absolutely good enough. Then the second step is what John was suggesting, right? So including a set of basic tools that are not used just for development, but also in deployment. In my mind, there's the push key, or I don't know. There are
pushing applications.
Yeah. So those things, but let's start from. We need to start from something, right? So let's start with the installation, and then we move to the tools.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, so I've just deleted content from the obsolete pages and put placeholder text. So
oh, you just did it?
I just deleted the wiki. You don't have the wiki anymore.
Okay.
I just deleted the obsolete content. So, but now it just says like the obsolete content is deleted. It just needs to be written. So I think I'll go write it.
Okay, so
yeah. But it sounds like you're considering you want to hit this up separate.
Yeah, which would be great. Yeah. So the Git clone goes under the development guide at this point.
Correct.
It's already there.
And it should already be there.
It doesn't need to be replicated.
Now, if you go in administration guide since forever, I don't know if you changed it recently, but oh, thanks, guys.
If you go to wiki under guide, right? So for the developer guide should have.
Developer guide should have it.
So this is how you call. I mean, this is kind of what I was hoping. Top level, and this is what Brian and I put together with the bug stuff. The top level set of instructions, and this does not even include anything that you need to customize in your shell. Just a set of either available Linux commands, or the commands that are provided inside the source tree. You should be able to test it, build it, test it as a developer, run it locally, and import into your IDE.
So now if you go in the administrator guide, what you got?
So we should probably.
So in the administrator guide,
Getting ONOS, you are already there.
so getting ONOS, right? So getting ONOS would be.
This guy is sneaky. What are we talking about? You already decided. You already changed the wiki.
I just changed it because it occurred to me that.
So the thing is, you can either build it or download it, and then from that point onward, the set of instructions should be the same.
Okay. Fine.
Exactly.
All right. Cool. Hey, so it looks like we're just a few minutes early, but that's good. Good.
Yeah, just so you know,
this is good discussion.
The div and the RPM, it should be not probably in the best way, but it should be possible to generate them.
There's also
Like
snap.
1 year.
We were supposed to be able to produce a snap so that you could actually.
Snap's a possibility too.
But
Yeah. So I wonder if you should create associated with
the
it.
thing though about like the snaps and the debs and the RPMs, and I don't think we want to manage all of these.
I was going to say.
Ideally, it would be better if like 1 or 2 members of the community who are interested in actually deploying in those ways were the maintainers of those.
But
and the best way to empower those people is to give them a set of instructions, because for the Snap guys, I sat with them for a couple hours during the hackathon and had to like help them, through their partial reverse engineering of our STC stuff, right? So, I think if we spend a little bit of time writing the documentation that you were describing, we'll empower a whole lot of people to build the orchestration scripts that they need.
Exactly. And what I was just going to suggest, and you basically just roll right into it, would be to
create a couple of tickets for creating DEB, creating RPM, creating Snap, and then basically advertise them on the community saying, hey, this is work that we're hoping to have, to have help with. And then if they have a common set of instructions, concise set of instructions they can refer to, then that job will be now much easier and will probably into it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I always say that I can't create the release if I know all the files every time, right? I created
the problem that Brian's saying, right? Even if we do it now, we don't have the bandwidth to maintain it in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mean we as a project?
No, we as.
Yeah, well, right now the DEB and RPMs are basically, if you look at it, they're part of the deprecated section of ONOS package script. ONOS package script now is effectively a two-liner, but even though it's still 200 or whatever lines long, the first 2 lines is really the only count. The third line is exit.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Thanks again, Thomas.
Well, that's because there was had to happen as part of the bug, right? Because a lot of the packaging staging is now done in the realm of bug, and we didn't have the bandwidth or time to port it to Debian, zip, and whatnot, or RPM. So somebody else should do that work.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to integrate that in Ubuntu as a default repository, that's a big.
No, of course, yeah. You have to pass lintian and everything else, which is.
But you also need to. Yeah. Also modify the location of the files, right?
Yeah, because right now, opt anything under opt is not gonna fly past lintian. Yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna stop the recording. It was a good discussion. See you next week. Actually, no. Next week we're not gonna have a meeting because it's gonna be ONOS and board meeting on our site. So next week we're gonna skip it, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.